So let's begin. It's few minutes after 6. So let's start with the call to order and the roll call.
Chris Diana, Robert Freeman, Patricia Jones,
Here.
Ann Hines Silvis,
Here.
Alex Womack.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Nick. So the first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting, which was March 25th. And you were provided that in your packet. Do I have a motion for acceptance?
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Patty. And Alex, I know you weren't here, but do you want a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alex. Any discussion on the minutes from our March 25th meeting? Hearing no discussion, I'll ask for approval of the minutes based on that motion. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, and the minutes from our March 25th meeting are approved. Are there any additions to our agenda this evening?
There are not.
Okay. Was there any public input provided for the meeting this evening?
There was not.
Okay. So that takes us to presentations. And are there any presentations for us this evening?
Yeah, we do have a few items on our staff briefing.
Okay.
So first of all, as you may have noticed, we are joined by a new commissioner this evening. So please give a welcome to Alex Womack. Alex is a resident of Urbana, has lived here for 7 years, graduated from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign with a bachelor's in physics and a master's in computer science. And he is passionate about housing and homelessness in Urbana and addressing those issues, and reached out about joining the commission as a way of getting more involved. So we're happy to have you here. Next, just a brief recap. We held our neighborhood cleanup event on Saturday, May 10th. Through that event, where households in our community development target areas are eligible to dispose of unwanted items. We served 81 households with a senior or someone with a disability through the courtesy collection service, and then 120 households attended the drop-off site, bringing us to 201 total households served through that event. Another update on our community services grant. This is kind of the new and improved version of what had been the youth services program, now expanded to a funding opportunity for nonprofit organizations serving low-income Urbana residents generally, no longer limited to just youth. So our review committee met in May and reviewed the applications that we received for this cycle, and 16 programs through 13 organizations were selected for funding this year, and those will be going to council for final approval on June 16th. But just as a sample of some of the service areas, we are still funding a number of youth service organizations, as well as organizations providing food access, housing, violence prevention, and immigrant services. Sure.
You may recall that in the past we funded a portion of our youth services grant program with community development block grant funding, and so as a result it would come to the commission for a vote. Because of council's increased investment in our social service funding, they increased the amount to $300,000. So we removed the CDBG commitment just so we can use those funds for other projects. So that's why there will be no public service grants going before this commission this year. Again, we've been encouraged to see council increasing the amount they've provided, and so we will be kind of retooling that CDBG public service funding for other purposes. So that's kind of why we won't be bringing those for a vote. They will be going to council, as Nick said.
So in the past, we've identified priorities, and we've also looked, just kind of looked at those proposals. Are we going to do any of that?
we're happy to answer any questions that you might have about them, but again, because we kind of shifted them, the reason there was that oversight is because the commission provides guidance on, our CDBG and our home funding, and they were funded in part with CDBG funding. So because we've kind of shifted that, we won't be doing that this year, but we're always happy to take input from the commission on different needs in the community and things like that.
And last year, you may remember, we presented an end-of-year recap on some of the accomplishments and narratives for some of the programs that received funding through the Youth Services Program. So we definitely plan on continuing to do that, and we would be happy to bring that to the Community Development Commission and get input from our commission in that regard. So next item on the staff report, we do have an update on our HUD allocations for the CDBG and home programs. As you may recall from some of our meetings in previous months, there was a lot of uncertainty about what those were going to look like. So at least for the next fiscal year, which will start in July 1st of this year and go through June 30th of 2026, we have received a CDBG allocation of $392,195. This is actually a 0.6% increase from what we received last year. And then our home program allocation, which just as a reminder is administered consortium-wide, which consists of the city of Urbana, the city of Champaign, and unincorporated areas of Champaign County. We are receiving $633,154.18, and this is a 3.3% increase relative to what we received last year. So just about level funding, which certainly compared to what we'd been preparing or fearing for, we're pretty happy to see stable funding, at least for the next year. Subsequent years, seems to be a little more uncertainty, but at least for the next year, our program funding will be pretty stable. And then on that note, we did bring the consolidated plan for the 2025 through 2029 fiscal year period, which includes the annual action plan for the 2025 through 2026 fiscal year, which was presented to the Community Development Commission in March. We brought that to council last night, and committee of the whole, sorry, and then they forwarded it to council next week. We got some good questions and feedback, but generally I would say that council was pretty supportive, so folks can tune in to council where they will likely be taking a vote on it next week. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention in the staff report section is just to be aware that we are sharing the room this evening with the Sustainability Advisory Commission, which is coming in at 7. So as we approach that, if we are still in discussion, we may need to be aware of that and push items to a later date for continued discussion.
Thanks, Nick. We'll watch the clock. I think we'll be fine. So thanks for the staff report. Any comments on the staff report?
I'm really happy that we didn't get a budget cut, because that's what I was kind of dreading. So that's great news. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Is there any unfinished business to come before the commission this evening?
No.
Okay. That takes us to new business, and we have 4 items under new business. Should we do those one by one, or how do you want to do those?
So there are actually 5. The last one didn't make it onto
5.
that same page.
Yes.
So there's 5 total. The first 4 I will actually discuss all at once because they're related, and then that 5th one I'll talk about briefly separately. Okay. So it might be, the commission you can vote on each one individually, or do an omnibus, which is an extra step, but whatever you think is more convenient. But the first 4 items under new business are resolutions approving the execution of housing and homeless innovations subrecipient agreements between the city of Urbana and 4 local homeless service provider organizations. For the commission and also for our new commissioner, I'll provide a little bit of context for this. Back in 2021, the Urbana Home Consortium, which the city of Urbana serves as the lead entity of, received $2.9 million through the American Rescue Plan Act through the HOME program. That funding is intended explicitly to serve and benefit individuals or families that are homeless or at risk of homelessness in Champaign County. So again, the funds came from HUD to the Urbana Home Consortium and can be used countywide for homeless services, the development of rental housing for homeless households, supportive services, and things of that nature. So as you may recall, back in 2023, we utilized that funding to operate our Housing and Homeless Innovations Grant Program. We call it HHI, that's the acronym that we use. And so we put those funds and rolled them in with some other funds that the city of Urbana had available at the time and did a competitive grant program called Housing and Homeless Innovations Grant Program. And that it was very successful. At that time, we gave just over $950,000 in home ARP funding to 4 local organizations to serve individuals and households that were experiencing homelessness or at risk of experiencing homelessness. And then we decided, in partnership with, again, the city of Champaign and some of our other local partners, to issue a second round of this funding through the HHI program to, again, further that work that these organizations have been doing. So back in January, and I have the dates here, back on January 6, 2025, we launched the second round of HHI funding, and applications were open until February 5th. And then, similar to how we operate our other competitive grant programs, we convened an internal review committee to review the applications and to score them and to come up with funding recommendations. So staff from both the City of Urbana and City of Champaign, along with representatives from United Way of Champaign County and the Champaign County Continuum of Service Providers to the Homeless, all came together, reviewed those proposals, and came up with funding recommendations. So in the memo that we've provided, you can see the agencies that we have recommended for funding through the second round of HHI funding. In total, we received 10 applications to this program. Of those 10, we selected 7 to be funded. So there were 3 that we did not, we decided to not pursue funding agreements with. 4 of the total 7 were selected to be funded with home ARP funding, and you see that chart there. The organizations are See You at Home for their operating support for their Mattis shelter development, Champaign County Regional Planning Commission, and their program is the Emergency Shelter for Families Comfort Corner program, Champaign County Healthcare Consumers and their Special Populations Outreach and Enrollment, and then City of Champaign Township Strides Shelter. So we'll be providing funding for their case management work that they do at Strides Shelter with the population. So in total, these agreements come to just over $500,000. We believe these are really high quality programs that will benefit our community. You'll also notice there are 3 organizations that we will be funding, but we will be utilizing other funding sources. So I know it might be a little bit confusing. Tonight, the commission is voting to approve the applications that are specifically being funded with home ARP, because that funding comes under your supervision. The other 3 organizations, which are Cunningham Township, they're a supportive service and street outreach program, First Followers, which is developing affordable rental housing, and then also there's another agreement for See You at Home for hard construction costs for their Mattis shelter expansion. So the See You at Home agreement will be funded with the city's ARPA allocation. Cunningham Township, we will be utilizing City General Fund, and then First Followers will be utilizing grant funding that we have through the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. So those three we included just for your information, so you can kind of see the full picture of who we're funding. But again, the ones that you're voting on tonight are the four: the Champaign County Healthcare Consumers, Champaign County Regional Planning Commission, City of Champaign Township Strides Shelter, and then the See You at Home operating support for the Mattis Shelter. So we are requesting your recommendation to forward these to the Committee of the Whole with a recommendation of approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about those.
Hey, Brent, thanks so much. That was really helpful. And just to remind us all, certainly when we think about funding affordable housing, we think of, actually building houses and construction. That's like part of it. But a lot of what we see here is operating support for organizations and also support services. Could you say a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So the supportive services that we're funding are really particularly designed to stabilize individuals and households that are seeking stable housing. So oftentimes getting someone a unit is really half of the battle. The other half is ensuring that they have the wraparound services that they need to live independently and to get the help that they need. Oftentimes when you're working with the homeless population, there's a lot of comorbidities, a lot of other issues, maybe it's substance abuse or other issues that they might have that they need help with so that they can maintain stable housing. So as one example, the Special Populations Outreach and Enrollment through the Champaign County Healthcare Consumers, what that program does is essentially their case managers work alongside their clients to get them enrolled in public benefits that their clients are eligible for. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to get a public benefit or, fill out a form on a government website. It can be difficult, especially if you have unstable housing or if you just don't have a lot of experience or knowledge about how to go about that. So oftentimes it could be Social Security or disability or something that they're entitled to, but they don't know how to go about getting. And so that's a really important program, again, to get these households some income that they're entitled to. Similarly, Champaign County Regional Planning Commission, their emergency shelter is really a stepping stone for getting households off the street into stable housing. It's kind of a stop along the way, I guess you could say. And so that program, they work alongside families with young children to ensure that they have the resources that they need to start on the path to finding that stable housing. So again, it's a really important component of that. So those are just some examples. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, and I think it's also important to realize that we fund legitimate organizations that do these services, and so part of quality control of your process is to make sure that a proper organization is really going to perform these things and not just...
Yes, absolutely. And we will, throughout the grant process, we will have quarterly reporting. We'll be, ensuring that, people are being served and that they're doing what they say they're doing for sure.
Great, thank you.
Braden, in your description, and we've talked about this before, some of these organizations are in other places. They're in Champaign or the county, but it's, I think, good to see that we're paying our share as a community in the county or as the shared Urbana side of organizations that serve the entire community, even though they might be located in Champaign. So I'm thinking about the Strides shelter, that really does serve people coming from Urbana, and even though it's not located in Urbana. So it's good to have that on our list.
Yeah, and similarly, the Mattis shelter development. So See You at Home, it has actually purchased a facility on South Mattis in Champaign. It used to be, I think it used to be an old IGA grocery store that has been kind of repurposed over the years into an office space and things and different iterations. And the city is using our ARPA funds to support that, even though it's not in Urbana. But we have the realization that homelessness doesn't stop at Wright Street. Oftentimes, these community members have lived in both Urbana, Champaign. They kind of come back and forth. And so it's some projects like that really will benefit the whole community.
Any other questions for Nick or Braden before we get ready to vote or make a motion?
I just had a quick one. The Stride Shelter for the support services, I know with the failure to pass the tax increase over in Champaign, they were specifically losing a portion of their funding this year. I'm assuming this will at least help alleviate that in some way, shape, or form, despite it going direct to supportive services.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the referendum did fail. From what I understand, the Strides Shelter has operating funding to get through another year. So they have a year remaining of funding through the city of Champaign to keep the lights on. This funding in particular will go to support a case I think 2 case managers and their staff time to work specifically with clients. So it'll help supplement that funding that they have for their staff salaries.
Thank you.
Any more questions, comments before we look at how we want to forward these? So I think that unless there's one that we want to pull out, we could have a motion to create an omnibus with all 4 of these resolutions.
I
Okay.
move to have the 4 resolutions listed on our page of our packet to be one motion to be voted on.
Okay, thank you, Patty. Is there a second?
So I'm sorry to have to say this, but I did check with the clerk's office about the proper procedure here. I think we need you to read the name of each of the resolutions when
Okay.
you are creating the omnibus. Then you can just refer to the omnibus when you are voting on the omnibus, but when you create the omnibus, you actually need to read the name of
Okay.
each item.
We'll
So,
rewind and do it again.
Thank
Okay.
you, and sorry.
Sure, okay. So I move to create an omnibus motion out of the following 4 resolutions. Number 1, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a Housing and Homeless Innovations 2 subrecipient agreement between the City of Urbana and Champaign County Healthcare Consumers for Special Populations Outreach and Enrollment. Number 2, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution resolution, approving and authorizing a Housing and Homeless Innovations 2 subrecipient agreement between the City of Urbana and Champaign County Regional Planning Commission for Emergency Shelter for Families Comfort Corner. Number 3, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution Housing and Homeless Innovations 2 subrecipient agreement between the City of Urbana and the City of Champaign Township for Strides Supportive Services. Number 4, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a Housing and Homeless Innovations 2 subrecipient agreement between the City of Urbana and CU at Home, Inc. for Mattis Shelter operating support.
Thank you, Patty. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alex. So we have a motion to create one omnibus from these 4 resolutions. All in favor, is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So the ayes have it, and we'll consider these 4 resolutions as the omnibus. So is there a motion for a way to forward the omnibus?
I move to forward this omnibus onto the City Council
With a recommendation for,
with a recommendation for approval.
okay, thank you, Patty. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alex. Is there discussion on the motion, which is before us, to send the omnibus to council with a recommendation for approval? Any discussion? No? Okay, so all in favor of sending this omnibus forward to council with a recommendation for approval, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. So the ayes have it, and the motion is approved. So that takes us to number 5.
Yes, so this resolution is also related to the Home ARP program. So this is one of our subrecipient agreements from that first round of funding through the HHI program that we did in 2023. The resolution is to allow the extension of this existing subrecipient agreement for housing navigation case management services for low-income households provided through the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission. The original subrecipient agreement that was executed executed back in 2023 with RPC using the home ARP funds was for $148,224, again, to provide case management and housing navigation services to eligible low-income clients. So by approving this, the commission would be allowing RPC to roll over their remaining balance of $25,137 to this next fiscal year. So they would have until June 30th, 2026 to complete their program. Just to provide a little context as to why this extension is needed, RPC has had some staffing turnover and some hiring delays, which slowed down their implementation of this program. But they're now fully staffed, and they expect to be able to spend the remaining $25,000 within the next several months. They anticipate that by extending this agreement, an additional 10 to 15 households will receive housing navigation and case management services. Some of those services include housing application fees, renters insurance payments, security deposits, and payment of utility and rental arrears. Oftentimes, rental arrears can prevent clients from being able to secure new housing, so that's a really important part of their program. So again, by forwarding this to council, we will be allowing RPC to roll over their funds to the next fiscal year. If we were not to do this, RPC would lose access to the funds on the remaining funds on June 30th. So we want to make sure that they can continue to serve their clients over the next few months. So I'll be happy to take any questions you have.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
I move to approve the resolution approving amendment number 2 to an Urbana Home Consortium subrecipient agreement, Champaign County Regional Planning Commission Housing Navigation Program from Home ARP FY 21 to 22 to allow them to roll over their remaining balances into the next fiscal year.
Thank you, Patty. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alex. Any discussion on the motion that we have? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving this resolution, recommending that for approval for council, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, and we are recommending that number 5 for approval by council. Any other items to come before the commission this evening?
There are not.
Okay. Having reached the end of our agenda,